So my name's Carla. I run WGSN, so we're the world's leading trend forecasting company. And probably the question I get asked most, actually the question I get asked most is what colour will I be wearing next season? The second question I get asked most is how do you predict trends? And I'm a journalist, editor by background, so I'm as cynical as everyone sitting around this table. So we have a proprietary methodology that we call STEPIC. So we look at really big macro movements across society, technology, the environment, politics, industry, culture and creativity. And we look what's happening in these big areas. From there we can understand how people will think, feel, behave and act in future years. And from there we can really accurately forecast what kind of products, services and experiences they will need to fulfill those needs and wants and desires. And importantly for brands, what they're going to spend their money on. Now, 2 years ago, I gave a talk at South by Southwest, and in that talk, I used wellness as an example of a manifestation of big changes that were taking place across the environment, technology, politics, etc., etc. Then, wellness was an output. Wellness was a trend. I would argue that today, wellness has moved from being the trend to being one of those macro movements. It infiltrates every aspect of our lives. Now, it infiltrates every aspect of people's lives across every kind of strata of society, certainly in the developing world. So your wellness warriors who have changed the way they eat, the clothes that they wear, in many cases even the careers that they have, but it's also affecting people who don't have the time, inclination or money to buy into wellness. And kind of example of that would be if we look at, the tax on sugary drinks. So someone who has decided not to partake in wellness can be going to the supermarket and buying exactly the same products as they always have, and yet they're better for them because of changes that are taking place in a political area because of this wellness movement. And I think this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg that we're seeing right now. Because those big conglomerates, the big brands that have filled our kitchen cupboards and our fridges are having to fight to compete with those startups who are really capitalising on what wellness affords. They are really having to think about how can they better fulfil to every strata of society, whether there are people who really want a more well way of living and those that don't as well. So if wellness is kind of infiltrating everything that we do and how we live our lives, what are the kind of areas where we at WGSN think we're going to see most of that in years to come? One of those I'm dubbing Well World, and this is actually another movement that's intersecting really well with wellness and that sustainability. It's my fundamental belief and the fundamental belief of the company that I run that individuals who are concerned about the wellness of themselves are also concerned about the wellness of the planet. And even if they don't believe that, we are seeing this mass movement, the proliferation of the messages that are being repeated ad nauseum through the media at the moment, thanks to people like Greta, but also Extinction Rebellion, and whether you buy into the practices there, we are being bombarded with the message that we have got to do more and we've got to do better. And that's really kind of striking a chord with people who have been looking inwards about how they can live a more well life. And I think every brand that partakes in the wellness environment are going to be having to look at themselves long and hard to think, are they doing right by this? Are they thinking about the right sustainable business practices? Are they thinking about their supply chain? And when they offer up a product experience, is that sustainable in how it manifests itself? The second area where I think wellness is going to infiltrate everything we do is what I'm calling wellness in the mundane. Now, some of you who might have been at this event last year, I talked then about smart mirrors, and I was very excited to see all the headlines spinning around about the world about the launch of the mirror in the US first. So those of you who might not, although I'm expecting most of the journalists around the table will have heard of the mirror. So this is a mirror you put on your wall, and then you do exercises, classes through it. You've got a personal trainer on the other side. It's kind of the hot new buzzword in Hollywood and coming over here shortly. What that is a really interesting manifestation of is something that we have used for one thing for years and years and now has another use. And I think the wellness industry is really going to capitalise on this going forward. So we've thought about smart fridges and how they'll reorder the things that we've run out of, but they are going to get to a stage where they're going to prompt us to be more responsible in the choices of what's stocked in our fridge. So think about all the boring things in your home or the boring things in your office and how they can be better equipped for a world in which wellness is right at the fore. The third area is about how we kind of body hack ourselves, how we life hack through supplements, but also the ingredients in the foods that we buy and that we partake. Now, supplements are nothing new. This is, again, not so much a trend as something that we're just used to now. Again, you know, a huge, big industry for us. But people who are looking at anti-aging are really taking this a big step forwards right now, looking at very personalised versions of what we put into our bodies and how those are going to make us more well. And I think we're going to move away from that kind of health foodie, even the kind of whole foods, which are much more mass market now. But what we think about in terms of what we're putting inside us, and not just from the food that we take off the shelves, our expectations of what we put into our bodies is getting so much higher. We are so much more informed as individuals. And if you look at how the beauty industry has evolved recently, that people are now buying into products, you have to know your hydrochloric acid from your squalene, even if you're just a kind of bog standard ordinary consumer, that's the way we're going to be thinking about the supplements that we put inside us. And our expectation that brands will also think about that for us. Now, I've probably said the word expectation quite a few times in this very short introduction. That's what this comes back to. As individuals, we are better informed than we ever have been, and therefore our expectations of what this industry and industries that sit alongside it who will want to capitalise on this is getting ever more higher. And these are some of the things that you're going to hear from the speakers this morning. So at WGSN, when we're informing the fashion industry, the beauty industry, technology industry, wellness isn't something that sits aside from that. It's something that, just like sustainability, runs absolutely through everything we do in terms of advice, because that's what we're hearing from the consumer. When we are on the ground, at festivals, at conferences, in cities where, you know, early adopters are at the forefront, we're not just hearing this, we are seeing it in the choices that people are making now, the choices that they want to make if the services are there for them. Wellness is no longer a trend, it absolutely is a way of life, and that's the one message that I think is really important that people take away from this, and as you listen to the great speakers that you're going to hear from this morning. So thank you very much. If you want to hear more about WGSN and trends and things, I'll be around afterwards to answer any questions. Thank you.